Hello creators, how are you guys? It's great to hang out with you guys again for another Video Creators podcast episode and live stream. Today we are going to be talking about those of you guys who are experiencing some success on your channel and you're ready to move and transition that into becoming a business and turning this into your full-time gig, or maybe you're still in that awkward phase where you're seeing some success on your channel and you're seeing it generate some income for you, but not enough to start hiring your team. But if you want to actually keep growing your channel, you need to start hiring people and start growing a team. So how do you make that transition from being a solo creator on your own to then expanding your team so that your business and the money and everything, your audience, everything you're doing on your channel can continue to grow and expand? And so today we're going to talk about how to find and hire and onboard those first team members you need for your channel, as well as hopefully give you some suggestions that will set you up for this to be a success and not just like a big stressful thing for you, so you can make that transition as smoothly as possible. So we're excited to dive into that with you guys here today. We got a lot of notes and a lot of ideas, things lined up to discuss. But first of all, let me introduce you to the two people I will be discussing them with here. These are two of the YouTube strategists here on my team, Mr. Lennon and Mrs. Delana is what I'm calling you today. How are you guys doing?
That's a first.
Mr. and Mrs.
Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not to each other, but to other people. So, Delana, how you guys been doing this past week? You guys have had some exciting things going on.
So exciting. Yeah, we put in an offer on a house and we got the inspection done and everything. So now we're just waiting to hear how they will, play with the changes that we want to make before we move in and everything, getting all of that approved. We're making our amendments. That's what it's called. I'm learning all this terminology now. So, yeah, it's really, really exciting. Everything's gone really smoothly and really easy and like better than we could have imagined already. So this is like really, we feel the last hurdle that we need to get over, and then it's just going to kind of be waiting.
So when you got back that inspection, were you like just pretty much stressed out and like, oh my gosh, everything I thought, this is your first house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
you're like, everything I thought was awesome is terrible.
I see, what's funny is that I felt like I went into it with relatively realistic expectations, but then still felt slightly devastated afterwards. Because I knew what the inspector's job was, and I knew that he was going to make everything sound like it was falling apart, because he can't tell you, oh yeah, don't worry about it, because then that could come back on him or something like that. And so it's his job to make sure that the severity or the potential severity of anything that is possibly wrong. And so, right. Yeah, coming out of that, I was just kind of like, Sam, I think you should have the rest of these conversations. Because it was very stressful for me.
Yeah. Well, congrats. So did they accept your offer yet or no?
Yeah, they've accepted it. Yeah, we've done we put in our earnest money and everything.
Right.
So
that's right.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, if you were doing the inspection, yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, because I hadn't even told you guys yet that, yeah, they accepted the offer. So
now so when's the date? Or you don't want to say yet? Or
May 22nd is our closing date.
First time homeowners, right?
First time homeowners.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. But I've been tired. Oh my gosh. I took it really easy this weekend because it's been like work and then house and then work and then house. And so This was the first weekend that I've just been able to kind of chill. So
how about you guys, Lennon? What have you guys been up to?
Well, we, let's see, what did we do this weekend? Well, I went and played some Frisbee golf, which is not something I'm good at.
It's fun though. I love that.
It was fun. Yeah. And so a friend of mine is like my best friend since high school. They've been in this quarantine situation as well. And, none of us have seen anybody, and it's been weeks. And we're like, all right, well, maybe we can get together, just the four of us, and have some dinner. So we went and had some dinner, did some disc golf, and then just enjoyed hanging out and playing some games and getting to have some much needed person-to-person interaction.
Yeah.
So
we have a family living with us, so we have that interaction while they're getting ready to move to Thailand. So having the interaction is very good.
Yeah, is that a good, because I mean, you guys got quite a bit of space, so how's that working out for you guys?
Pretty good. Yeah, they basically stay in their space in the basement. The basement has its own kitchen, living room, bedrooms. I know you guys have seen it, but washer dryer.
I was gonna say, should we just pretend like it's a one-room concrete like slab?
It's got its own entrance, own parking space, all that kind of stuff. And so we were upstairs, they're downstairs, and then they have kids, our kids ages, so they come out. We said after 1:30, that gives us our mornings alone to kind of get our stuff done, and then the kids can play after 1:30 if all their chores and homework, their schoolwork and everything is done, then they can do that. So maybe you hear them right now. I don't know how good my microphone is, but they are riding their bikes and yelling all the way around my office windows and everything. So yeah, we've been good. So if you guys are in the live stream and you have a question that you would like us to answer that's on topic, we're very thankful for Dahlia being our YouTube moderator for today and our producer from Welcome to Chickenlandia. I actually have been watching her channel because we are getting chickens and I have a ton to learn. And so her channel has been very helpful. So if you guys want to check it out, there's you can go just click on her in the chat. But Dahlia from Welcome to Chickenlandia, great channel. Here, I'll put it in the chat for you guys too, in case you want to check it out there. So there it is. And yeah, so if you guys have questions that are on topic, make sure you tag her in the chat. So use the @ symbol, then start typing welcome to, it'll tag her. That'll make your questions pop out to her, and then she will take your questions that are on topic and queue them up for us. So even if you can't stick around for the whole thing, or if you like sometimes we get a ton of questions that are off topic, so she helps us filter out while we hang out here. So make sure you guys do that, and we will do our best to answer as many of your questions here as we can. So fun to see a lot of you guys here. Sarah Dawn, Boone Builds. Hey, Boone. Good to see you again. Boone is like a Video Labs graduate from I don't even know how many years ago. And then he ended up on a television show doing Lego builds, if I'm not mistaken. And then that is like what his channel's all about. And now he's coming back to YouTube stuff. So fun to see Boone. And a lot of the regulars here. So welcome back, everybody. Let's see. We have a fun creator spotlight for you guys this week. This is from a 1-hour consultation that Delana did. And Delana, you want to set us up for what we're about to see here?
Yeah, totally.
Listen to here if you're on the podcast.
Yeah. So this is a creator named Nick. He's from the Business Brush TV, and we had a call. It was sometime last week, and he knew that his niche was small. But he still was kind of like, I'm not really sure what I'm missing here. Like, I feel like I'm optimizing for people, and everything in between. And we just got to have a really, really good conversation about some things that he can improve on his channel. So, he's all about helping painters kind of hone in on the business side of things. And because from his perspective, a lot of painters aren't super business savvy. And so he wants to help them kind of build their business by educating them on the business side. So that's Nick. I'm excited for you guys to see it.
Yeah, let's introduce you guys to Nick here.
Nick, like, how are you feeling coming into this consultation? And then, how are you feeling now?
Well, to be honest, I signed up last week and I couldn't wait.
Oh, cool.
But the fun thing was I literally had just found you guys, and so it gave me some time to listen to some of your content and watch some of your content. I listened to the podcast. I listened to, I don't know how many videos. So it's been to have a couple of days in between was probably better for me because I did learn some things, and you and I talked about some of that stuff today. So I was super excited, and you met every expectation that I had for our time together, and I can't wait to kind of go to the next step.
Yeah, awesome. So what are some of the things that what's maybe some of the direction that you feel you have now? What are some of the things you feel like you need to work on?
Well, I was bound and determined to just jump in and redo every single video that we had, and you told me not to do that. So that's good. We've scaled it back. You gave me some homework. We're going to do just 5 and test out some new endings, and then we're going to watch the analytics and see what actually happens with that. You helped me understand. I'm a story guy, but I'm in my own stuff, and so
Yeah.
I think something is coming out, and it's clearly not from you watching some of my videos. So I think, our number one thing that I need to tackle and really focus on moving forward is really connecting with my target audience and kind of going back, even though it's me going back, 15, 20 years in business, to kind of put myself back in their shoes,
Yeah.
and try to help share those stories and the struggles. I think I've always been a big believer of if we're a success, we are standing on this little peak of success that is literally a mountain of just our failures that we've learned from, hopefully, and we've just continued to do better and better. And I have a ton of those, so I just have
Yeah.
to do a better job of sharing those.
That is so powerful. I felt it when you were talking about that. That's so good. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to see what you do on your channel. Can you tell us where they can find you if they want to check out your channel?
Absolutely. Please check us out. It's the Business Brush TV.
Yeah, and he shares all about like the behind the scenes of, the struggles that painters have in their business and how to overcome them. And especially if you're just kind of like, I'm a painter and I don't know what I'm missing, like he lets you know what you're missing. It's so good. So we'll leave it
And if
linked
you're
down
just
in
a
the show notes.
business person, all the stuff is evergreen content. Like
It's true. Yeah.
it's business. We just happen to talk about it in relation to being a painter.
Yep. Totally. Yep. The principles kind of go all across the board in a lot of ways, for sure.
Even with running a YouTube channel.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, so we'll leave him linked down in the show notes. Thank you so much, Nick.
You guys, his link is down there if you guys want to check it out. And if you would like to jump into a 1-hour consultation with Lennon, Delana, or myself, you can go to videocreators.com/consulting. And we just love, really do love getting into these calls with you guys and talking about your YouTube channel. And most importantly, helping you come up with a plan to move forward, to overcome the roadblocks that you're facing. Lennon and Delana do a lot of these every week, helping creators who feel stuck get unstuck and start building momentum with their views and their subscribers, and they're getting their channel moving forward. And I do a lot of that too. My sessions tend to focus more on the business side of things, with like that next level creator, but all 3 of us love talking to anybody. We don't really care. It's just whoever you want to talk to. So you go to videocreators.com/consulting, and we'd love to do a 1-hour session with you and dive in with you guys. So check it out. Link to that down in the show notes below. Today we're talking about... What are we talking about? Oh, lost my train of thought. Today we're talking about your first team members you need for your YouTube channel. So as the thing is growing, turning into a business, generating income for you and your family, it's really easy to get stuck, just feeling overwhelmed and like, I know what I need to do to grow my channel, but I just don't have the time to do it because I'm also juggling all these other things. Or even if you're not juggling other things, maybe your channel is your full-time gig and you're still like, I'm making enough money to support me, but not enough to start hiring other people and getting out of this overwhelm, this feeling I have where I don't know how to move forward because I got all these things going on, but I can't stop any of them because they all equal some sort of monetization, money coming in, and I can't afford to lose any of it. So today we'll just talk through a few ideas of how to determine what roles you should hire first and how to hire them and bring them in. So channel growth is something that most of you guys who are interested in this topic have probably already figured out. Your channel's already growing, and you've been the one working on it from the very beginning. You're the one who's been making the videos, editing the videos, thinking of the content ideas. You're the ones publishing them. You are interacting, engaging with the audience. You're managing all the opportunities that come into your inbox, and you're building the relationships with everyone, and you're doing all the networking. What else are these guys doing? I feel like I hit a lot of it, but anything else these guys? I mean, you guys are just doing everything. Just
Yeah.
You're posting on the Instagrams and on the TikToks and on the YouTubes and on the everythings, the LinkedIn's, the Pinterests, the no more Tumblr, no more Vine, no more Google Pluses. Just a lot. You're doing lots of things. What's that?
R.I.P.
R.I.P. See you later. No
I was gonna say this.
I do miss Vine though.
Yeah.
But TikTok is kind of taking its place, so that's all right. So yeah, you're doing all these things, and you're the one doing everything, and now it's making some money for you. And when you feel stuck, how do you just get to that next level? You're feeling overwhelmed. There's a good principle in a book called Emeth, where he talks about how in order to grow, you need to work on your business, not in your business. And a lot of us easily get stuck working in our businesses. And I think I've told some of you guys the story before, but there's always new people here. So in case you haven't heard it, like for me, I remember this point very, very well in my YouTube journey. It was back around 2013 to 14 when this was making enough money to support me and my family full time. But I was doing about 10 different things, and I felt like I was working all day, every day, and nothing, like everything had to stay perfectly in balance. If any little thing tweaked something one week and it kind of got out of balance, all of a sudden everything else felt like chaos. But I couldn't let anything go because it represented revenue, and I just felt like I was stuck. I was doing all the things in my business. And so I listened to the audiobook of this book called E-Myth, and I'm like, how do I get back to working on my business? And so I'm going to give you guys a few ideas for how to make that transition. And Len and Delana, obviously, please feel free to jump in at any point. And you guys have questions about this as we go through it. Those of you who are in the live stream, tag Welcome to Chickenlandia, who's our moderator today, and she will get your questions in front of us here. But the number one thing that I had to do, and I would recommend that you do as well, is like, don't just quickly jump into hiring someone. You want this to work out well for you and for them, or even just getting a volunteer. It doesn't really matter. All this stuff, all these principles will apply to whoever, whether you're paying them or not. But the first thing I recommend you do is you first develop a plan for what you're going to do when you work on your business, if you have the time to do it. So for me, at that point, I knew that when I was making this awkward transition, I was like, I have this idea for this group coaching. It's like a combination between group coaching and an online course where I can help a lot more people in a lot more affordable way for them get really amazing results on their channel. And so I had this idea that later turned into Video Labs, but at the time it was just an idea. But I didn't have any time to work on it because I was doing all the editing, all the shooting, all the promotion, all the email stuff, all the website development, all of the everything. And I was doing all the grunt work and stuck working in my business. So I had this idea. And so the first thing I would do is, like, if you have an idea, like, you don't have to put a lot of time in developing it. You're going to get time for that here in a future step. But for right now, you should just have an idea of, if I did this, I could get back to working on the business and it would grow. It could be product related. It could be service related. What comes to mind for you two, Lennon and Delana, when you think about for a creator who just needs an idea of a plan that they could do, something they could do to work on their business instead of in it? What comes to mind for you guys from the consultations and sessions that you guys have done with creators?
Yeah, I mean, even from a personal standpoint, there's a lot of little things that, as you're developing and growing, you're probably putting out emails on a weekly basis. You're probably making sure that you're just organizing content or it's all these little things that may take 30 or 45 minutes at a time. But if you're anything like me, like your brain, you have to sanction off big chunks to say, I'm going to do this at this time and it's going to carry me through. Because the more you break that up, the more you get sort of sidetracked if you work similar to me. And so even for me, I've hired a virtual assistant to help with a lot of those kinds of things. So I'll just dictate an email into the phone, send him that file and say, okay, go type this up, or, take this video and start the editing process, prep this for being published, just all the little things that you feel like you may not actually like to do. That's really a good place to start. If you feel like it just doesn't feel like it fuels your fire and somebody would actually, be good at that, and it's simple for you to systematize it or make a checklist, I think that's a really good place to begin. And that way you can just then say, okay, this is the 20% that I need to be doing that's going to move the needle 80% of the business, which may be content. It may be developing a course. It could be any of those things that is actually going to generate revenue for you or really get your business going.
Yeah. And then once you have that plan for what you're going to do to work on your business, if you have the time for it, then step number 2 I would recommend is determine what you enjoy doing the least, or that you feel would be the easiest to pass along to someone. Like, what are you going to have that next person do? And I think there's probably business people who would tell you a lot of different ideas, but I think for me, it was, I needed an emotion more than I needed like an actual like correct structure, a way for doing this. I needed to feel like I was gaining momentum. And so what is it that makes you feel like is holding you back? For me, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys here. You might not like to hear this, but I really don't like email. I really don't like it. It takes up so much time, and I like connecting with people, but email is just not a good way for me to do it. So that felt like an emotional drain. I was also spending a lot of time editing my videos, and I don't mind editing videos, but when you're doing it was like consuming at least half of my time at that point because I was doing several videos a week and shooting and editing all of them. That was by far where most of my time was going. And I didn't mind doing it, but I knew that was something that someone else could just as easily do because I don't have exceptional editing skills more than anyone else does. So 2, I would determine what do you enjoy doing the least, or what do you think would be the easiest to pass along to someone else? And either one of those 2 will give you some sort of emotional, like, oh, I feel like I'm gaining momentum here and helping you move forward. So then once you determine what that is, then step number 3 is to now turn whatever that thing is you said I'm going to hand off to someone else, and turn that into a checklist or turn that into systems that someone else can follow. Don't just give someone a job and expect them to do it just as well as you do, because I can promise you they won't. You've been doing it for months, maybe years, over and over and over again. And this is the very first time they've done it. Think of the first time you ever tried to do something. How good of a job did you do? Even if they claim to be an expert or you're hiring someone who has lots of experience in this thing, they still aren't you, and they still will do it differently than you. And doing something differently will lead to different results. So you might say, look at the result and say, no, you're doing it wrong. When really they're not doing it wrong, they're just doing it differently. So it's very important that whatever this role is, that before you bring someone on, you first need to get them a process or a checklist or some sort of system that they can follow, that is like, here's where you start, here's how I do it. And then you should expect that person, we'll talk about this in a little bit, but expect that person then to at least follow that process until they understand it, and then give them the freedom to improve upon it so that the result is still the same. Because ultimately you don't want to hire people who are going to do just the same thing you could have done. Like my editor, if I'm going to pay someone money, I want her to do it better than I could have done, which she does all day long. So it's if it's editing, or if it's your email, or if it's just like an admin person or whatever. We'll talk about some of those roles here in a little bit. But yeah, make sure you put that into a system or a checklist that you can just give to anyone. And if they go through the checklist and get to the end, they will have guaranteed the result that they get from it will be pretty much the same as if you have done it. It might not be exactly, it might be only like 90, 85% or 90% of the way there. But that last 10 to 15%, no one else is going to notice except for you. So it's probably just fine to let that go. one easy way to do this is just screen capture yourself walking through it a few times. So when I hired my video editor, I just screen captured myself editing a few of my videos from beginning to end. They were really long screen captures. I think each of them was like an hour and a half to 2 hours long, but I was explaining the whole time, this is why I'm cutting here, this is why I'm cutting there, or if this happens in the audio, this is what I do. And just giving them, and yes, I paid them to watch the full 10 hours of screen capture or whatever it ended up being, so that she could start off and be equipped. She could start off successfully and do something that looked at least half decent, and not half decent, but close to what I would have done if I had done it myself. So anything come to mind for you too as you talk about checklists and systems and offloading stuff and figuring out how to make a reproducible system for something? I know you guys both do that in my own business on different ways, with Lennon on our private network and Delana with our clients, but anything come to mind for you too?
Well, I've had mixed things happen with this, because I've found that with some people it works really well, and then I found that with some people they're kind of like me, where this is like you still have to sort of watch them, like walk them through it to say, okay, you can't just act on instinct all the time. It's got to be like, so I think systems are great, and I think it's 100% incredibly important, and I've learned that honestly through working here. But I do think that there comes a point where you may have to just be patient, as we go next into like finding somebody. Be patient with that person. It's not going to happen right away. It doesn't matter who it is. And so I think that's really something to also just keep in mind, is that depending on the person, it may just rock solid be there, and then it may be that you still have to walk them through some of that.
Yeah, I think you should actually expect that you're going to have to do that, because they're going to bump into things you hadn't bumped into before, and there's going to be things you just didn't cover in your checklist that just got missed, that you never even thought of before, that like, oh, that needs to be in there. Yeah, I didn't think of that. So that's definitely going to happen.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that I think that there's also the type of person like me, like whenever I have those checklists in front of me, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It gives me so much direction. But then like, there will be little things where just really making sure that whenever you write that checklist, and it will take some practice of other people using it, that it really fully embodies like if this happens, then you probably want to do this, and if this, or some, like all the variables that could come along with whatever this role entails, and trying to lay that out as much as possible, because then the more detailed you are in that, the more that you'll be able to just hand it off to somebody, and it won't take as much time from you. But like Tim said at the beginning, I think it definitely will take a lot of trial and error of, I know this system because I've been doing it for so long, that you forget all the little details to kind of outline. Yeah.
And then furthermore, the foundations on how you make decisions, and you haven't communicated that part yet, but you will need to eventually. Robbie Garns in the chat says, I can imagine sharing your vision with someone else would be the biggest challenge. It could be frustrating if they don't edit the way you would. Yeah. And so but the frustration is just another word. Like the way I think about it now is I haven't figured out yet a good way to communicate my vision. So it's not like it can't be done. I just need to solve a different problem that gets me unstuck. And the different problem is, how do I communicate my vision for it? So for example, one way I do it is when I'm shooting my content and I have a certain visual or B-roll or something want to happen, I will just pause what I'm saying and speak right to my editor while I'm shooting and be like, Julia, right here, let's make sure we get some B-roll of this thing here. If you don't have that already, let me know. I'll go shoot some for you, or whatever. I just talk to my editor while I'm shooting, and obviously she cuts that part out. But for me, that's helped us a lot. So then while she's editing, she gets those notes of what I'm thinking in terms of visuals while I'm going through it. But
and in a training process too, and this is something that I've sort of learned the hard way with the guy that I'm working with, is that he's a really hard worker, but again, some things kind of slip through the cracks. So I've been doing a lot of like, okay, this month we're just going to focus on these 3 things. We're going to set 3 big goals for you to get really good at. And then next month we'll up that game and we're going to get better at that. And each month I'm letting him do an edit, and then I'll re-edit whatever he doesn't do the way I would want it and screen capture that entire thing. So he sees, this is why I would change this.
Right.
Because I think that's part of it, is they need to see what's their typical workflow versus yours, and why is your thought process different from that? Because if they don't pair those 2 things, it can be really difficult for them to make those changes.
Right. Yeah, and Tronics Fix says, but can't I just hire someone who already knows everything? LOL, wouldn't that be nice? No, actually, it's not nice, because I find that someone who already knows everything is usually pretty difficult to teach. They're usually not very teachable, because they know everything and they spend all this time learning how to do something for you. But then when you hire them, they do it differently from you, which produces a different result. Then you're saying, no, that's not the result I want. I actually want this result. So you're going to have to do it differently. And sometimes, like, I actually would prefer to take someone who is humble and teachable and knows nothing, than someone who is like an expert already. Again, like, I want them to have some skill sets maybe, but the teachable and humility part is extremely important. So let's go to number 4 here. Step number 4 is, so 1, you develop a plan for what you're going to do to work on your business. 2, you're going to determine what you enjoy doing the least, or what could be the easiest to pass along to someone else. 3, turn that into that task or that role into checklists and systems someone else can follow, maybe with a screen capture or whatever else. And then 4, now you go find someone. And there's a lot of different ways you could find someone. You could hire a friend, which is the way I hired my first editor. It's just a friend of mine who lost his job and needed something and didn't know how to edit. And I was like, well, watch this tutorial, this course on how to edit with Premiere on lynda.com. And, 8 hours later, he knew the mechanics of editing and started editing my videos for me. Maybe it's a mutual friend, which is how I hired Catherine, my business manager. She was actually my sister's best friend, and when my sister's maid of honor, or I don't remember if it was a maid of honor or actually a bridesmaid, but one of those 2 in my sister's wedding. So that's how I met her. Or I've hired other people like Lennon and Delana from my audience. So they were both creators growing YouTube channels and had their own projects they were working on. And I met them through Video Labs, actually. And so it was through that program that I'm like, hey, these people embody my values, which is the main thing you really want to look for, is do they embody your same values? If it's just like, oh, this person's good at this skill, they still will get a different result and they'll make decisions differently than you do. So what I'm not saying is you need to believe the same things, like from a religious or political perspective or anything like that. But we need to embody these same values. For us, is that this is about putting people first. This is about being results driven, and that this is about being mission oriented. Those 3 things. And so and then we have a couple of internal ones too, about like do it right and change is good and own it. So those 3 things are our internal core values. But yeah, so do they embody these things? And if they do, then I make a lot of hiring decisions. And someone asked about firing. It's a little off topic, but those decisions would also be made on, do they embody these core values? Yes or no? So those are really very important. And then number 5 is then commit to a 3-month trial. What happens is it's too easy to hire someone, and then 3 weeks later, 2 weeks later, you're like, ooh, they are taking way more of my time than they should. Like, sometimes you go into it with an unrealistic expectation that you're going to hire someone, and immediately you're going to have 5 extra hours a week to work on something. That's usually has been my experience. I now expect that this person is going to take more time from me than they free up, to Lennon's point earlier. It's like I expect them to take more time from me than they free up for the first few weeks, especially, but even up to 3 months. if I get to the end of 3-month trial and they're still taking more time from me than I expected, that's when I'm probably going to reconsider if it's worth moving on past the 3-month trial. But I at least want them to know, hey, you commit to me for 3 months, I'll commit to you for 3 months. At the end of 3 months, either one of us can back out. I don't want you to get stuck in a job that you thought it was going to be this way, but ended up being this other thing. And I don't want to just give up on you because I don't really like the way it's coming out or something's not working well or something like that. There might be extreme exceptions to that, but for the most part, I just commit to a 3-month free trial. And then I tell them that I want you to ask questions. I would rather you interrupt me and ask a question that will take me 5 minutes to answer than you to spend 2 hours trying to figure it out on your own and it still not be right. So please feel free to interrupt and ask. And so, yeah, start with a 3-month trial so neither one of you are stuck, but it's also an adequate time that in the first few weeks when things are more difficult than you maybe expected that they would be, that you still push through that and get to the sweet spot on the other side. So any thoughts from you two having gone through a 3-month trial here at Video Creators?
Oh, is the 3 months up? Len
and Delana have both been here for over a year now. So we just last month or 2 months ago? I don't remember. But
I think it was this month, April. Beginning of April. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations.
I don't know how long I've been married, so this is definitely not going to rank on me knowing how long I've been here. I apologize.
We got our anniversary date engraved in the inside of our wedding band, so I can't forget.
You have no excuse.
I don't. As long as I get my band off. Yeah.
I thought even from an employee standpoint, 3 months feels good because that is a good enough time to say, okay, am I actually enjoying this process? And I really think that's important because, if you can't develop on both ends some sort of rapport and communication in that amount of time, that's also probably a good signal that things aren't necessarily going to work because, you need to have great communication. It's such an important part. And I feel great here. I feel like we all communicate really well. If there's a frustration, if there's something that we feel really good about, I think we really do a good job on the team of trying to be there to motivate each other and also to say when we just don't think something's working. And that's that's rare. I feel like most people are afraid to have those sort of conversations. So if you can't figure that out in 3 months, you might want to keep moving.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say is that the reason I really liked the 3-month trial was because, you get used to all the logistics and the training and everything like that. But on a different note, it's what I feel is almost most important is how do you get along with the other team members and how do you kind of fit? And does this feel like a good environment for you? Does it feel like it will feed you and stuff like that? And so, that was one of the biggest things that I really appreciated the 3-month trial for was just I got to meet the team and not just meet the team and get a first impression, but I actually got to work with them for 3 months before I decided, this is a really good fit. This is something that I want to do. And I feel like because the people around you can have the most perfect position in the world, but the people around you can make or break, the perfect job. So I feel like it's really valuable in that way.
Robbie Garns again in chat says, I've had jobs that I couldn't wait for the 3 months to be up so I could leave. So
oh man,
it does go both ways. It's not just because you hire someone, they're going to stick with you forever. One thing I kind of skipped there, there's an in-between, maybe a 0.4B is after you hire or you find a couple people before you commit to the 3-month free trial. It's perfectly acceptable to do a one-time or a trial. Just okay, let's just start with one video and see how that goes. And normally what I would do is I recommend maybe if you have 3 people that you want to do a trial with. And so you give all 3 people the same video to edit. I know that doesn't sound great from a right. You're paying 3 people to do the same work. Why would you do that? It sounds like a waste, but it's not, because you want to see how good of a job all these people do with the exact same material. If you give them all 3 different jobs, then it's a little bit harder to compare the result and the product from one to the other. So I give them all the three same thing. And yes, it's going to be a little extra money, but I'm not really paying for a video to be edited or an email inbox. Like even when I was hiring my personal assistant, I just exported my inbox as like a CSV basically, and I turned it to an Excel spreadsheet that was all actual emails from my inbox. And I gave the same quote unquote inbox to each person. I said, respond to these emails as if they were we're not actually sending any emails. Just write it. And then I'll look through everyone's responses. And then I could see like, oh, wow, this person went out and figured that out. I never even had to tell them that. Versus this person just didn't even answer it because they didn't know the answer. So they just left it there. I'm like, okay, probably not going to do that one, that person. So I like people who can do some problem solving on their own when needed and figure some things out. So yeah, so you can do like a one-time trial with 3 or 4 different people if you want, and then commit to the 3-month trial after that. Last point here, and then Delaney's going to talk about who you should hire, then we'll dive into your questions here. So then after the 3-month trial, and maybe you can do this beforehand hopefully you'll get some time freed up before 3 months. So hopefully you'll experience it after a few weeks, but it could, depending on the job and the task and the role and their experience level. And it's not just their experience with that job, it's your experience level with learning how to communicate and lead and guide someone else. That's like my first hire did not go well. And looking back, I could see that was on me, not on them. A part of it was on them because I kept missing deadlines. That part's on them. But the part on that was on me was that I wasn't communicating what my expectations were well enough, and so we were doing like 7 rounds of revisions, and it wasn't saving me any time at that point. So a lot of this is on you guys to learn how to lead your people well and be a good employer so that you can set them up for success. After that, then start using your number 6, start using your freed up time to start implementing your idea that you figured out in step number 1 for working on your business. And when I did that, I think some of you guys have heard the story before, but for those of you who haven't, I had this idea for video labs, but I had no time to do it. And so I hired this friend of mine, needed a job. He didn't know how to edit videos, but he learned the mechanics of how to do that through going through a course, and then started editing my videos. And I told him, I was like, we're going to do this for 3 months. And I'm going to take, for me, I didn't have extra money to hire him. So I took money out of savings, and I said, I got this $3,000. Was it $3,000? Yeah, $3,000, so $1,000 a month. And I said at the end, I'm going to use this to pay you, but at the end of 3 months, I need to make back $9,000 for this math to keep working. So my goal was, could I make $9,000 with the time that he was freeing up from me in order to make the $3,000 I was paying him make sense? And he was like, yeah, no problem. I'm bored. So and that's part of like one of my values is just being completely open and honest with people rather than just harboring things. And then over time it just builds up and all of a sudden things fall apart and no one really knows why. So I told him that's exactly what's going on. He was cool with that. And so I quickly learned though, I put together video labs and I launched the very first one. And instead of making $9,000 with that freed up time over those 3 months, I made $15,000 in just the first month. And that was when I had this big aha moment for me was, oh yes, I need to be working on the business, not in the business. I need to be the visionary, the one who's moving things forward, the thing that is kind of pushing us to take new ground. That's developing like relationships and networking and like those CEO type things are the type of things I need to be doing. That is where my energy should be invested, not just because it made $15K in 1 month instead of $9K over 3 months. I think that's a good measurement of how we're serving people, but it wasn't because of the money. It was because now I'm helping more people than I could have before, and they're serving my family in return better than before. So that's what it was for me. So Delina, a few thoughts on if people are like, okay, who should I consider hiring first? And we'll dive into some questions there. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. So there's really kind of 5 maybe main categories that you should consider. And the first one is somebody who can handle all of your taxes, bookkeeping, budgeting, all of that, because especially if you're not a numbers person, you're going to spend way more time on that than you're going to spend triple the time that they would spend, doing what you're trying to do. And so that can really automatically start to free up a lot of your time, and it can also help you to recognize some of the gaps and where you're like, whoa, I've been way overspending in this area, and I could totally be spending that over here and it could bring in more profit. So they just really help to give you a clear picture and even direction on your business.
A quick plug for someone there would be I use midatlanticcpas.com, not sponsored, just in case you guys are going to ask me for recommendations here. I'll just tell you, I use them and been using them for years, and they pretty much function as my CFO, my person who handles my account there. Basically my CFO now. So she does all my bookkeeping, taxes, budgeting, profit and loss stuff, ROIs on everything. So that's great because that stuff does not give me energy, but it is necessary information I need to have in order to know how to best grow the business.
Yeah, I don't interact with her. I don't interact with her much, but from what I can tell, I'm like, she is awesome. Like she is on it. I've been really impressed by her. The little interaction that I've had. So anyways, the next one is an admin. So somebody who can handle your emails, who can handle your calendar, scheduling, and just kind of daily routine tasks that can build up and can take a lot of time. Even though they all feel like 10, 15-minute tasks, they tend to kind of eat up your days. And so somebody who can kind of like an assistant in a way, somebody who can kind of take some of those little tasks off of your shoulder can really help to allow you. I feel like the biggest thing is with little things like that is the mental space that you're clearing up, and not having to put it in your focus in all these little tiny places and being spread too thin. So admin is definitely a really valuable thing. And then this is a big one. This one hits home for me as an editor, which we've talked about a lot throughout this stream here. But yeah, an editor can just save you hours, depending on the type of content that you make. And what's cool is that a lot of editors are really willing to work where you are at. So if you're somebody who's like, I maybe want to edit like part of my videos, but then want to hand it off to somebody who can do the finishing touches, all the audio, add some cool effects, graphics, stuff like that. A lot of editors are willing to work with where you're at. But I think what's really important when hiring an editor is that they just catch onto your vision, because anytime for me, whenever I was looking for an editor, is if somebody kind of blew off, talked about YouTube videos, like they were like, oh yeah, I edit all this other stuff, I could totally edit a YouTube video. I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, if you're not taking it super seriously. So editor, make sure they at least have some experience or are willing to kind of hear what you have to say whenever it comes to editing your videos. So then there is a producer, and a producer is more on the YouTube side of things or even social media content overall, but somebody who will communicate with your video editor. So somebody who has a really good eye and has a clear picture of your vision, which may take some training off the forefront of things, but and then they can also manage all of your social media content. You post a YouTube video and then a mini version of that YouTube video gets posted to your Twitter or to TikTok or Instagram or something like that. And also keep an eye on your analytics, your YouTube analytics, and kind of get a bigger picture and then come to you and say, okay, these are the things that we've been doing. Here's what we need to do next. And then manager, so somebody who can handle contracts and negotiations and all that back and forth. Manager is super valuable for. So save a lot of time.
It looks like there's a couple people in the chat who use Mid-Atlantic CPAs as well. So that's cool. People are like, yes, Tronic Fix was saying, I use them too. I love them. So if you guys are interested, just email Ryan at midatlanticcpas.com. Tell them that I sent you and they'll take good care of you. Again, not sponsored, just helping you guys out because I know I got that question. Cool. Well, speaking of questions, let's dive into some here. Dennis Abad, how do you know when you're ready to have your first hire? Like, is there a threshold for earnings or a good number of months for your paid income that you can spend, or how do you figure that out? You guys have any thoughts on that?
My first thought is just whenever you're overwhelmed, whenever it's too much, it might be time to start considering hiring somebody else.
Yeah, if you're, I think Tim's point was really spot on. If you're not able to put time into the thing that can actually create growth, then it's probably time to make that initial investment, even if it's temporary. I think that can be a good way to think about it.
And the way that I thought about it whenever it came to me hiring an editor was I was like, how much time do I spend on this video, and how much time would somebody who knows all the shortcuts, knows how to make these graphics and things like that, like the back of their hand, like they could probably do what I do in half the time, And so that was the biggest thing, is if I'm spending at that point, it started to feel like a waste of time to me. Like, why don't I just pay someone else to do this so that I can spend more time on the things that actually bring in revenue, and then I'll pay them for it. All turns out, that it's like a win-win situation. Even though you're paying someone, you're also making more money because you freed yourself up. And so that was really the turning point for me, is I was like, I don't feel like I'm being a good steward of my time this way. And so I handed it off to somebody else.
Yeah, I think it's important to kind of piggyback on that is when you don't just go with the cheapest editor, because you can hire someone $15 an hour, which I've done, and they took 6 hours to edit one video, and it still needed several rounds of revisions after that, versus someone I pay that's like $75 an hour, but she does it in like an hour to an hour and a half and doesn't need any revisions, and it's a much better video than if I had done it myself. So you can spend like $200 pretty quickly on $15 an hour person, versus like $75 to $150 on a better video, and it take less of your time with a $75 an hour person. So don't look at just the rate, especially when it comes to editing. That there's a lot more to look at. So you might think you can't afford the $75 person one, but you actually can't afford the $15 one. So there's a lot more to look at there. And that also goes with DIY Gene's question. Who's a new member, channel member. Welcome, Gene. How do you know when you reach that point of starting to bring on help? For me, it was more about how the confidence I had in my idea, that if I had the time to do this, it would work. It's based on the feedback that I'm getting from people, the stuff I see in other industries that's working, whatever. Like, the higher my confidence went that if I had the time to do this, it would work, then I felt like the risk was lower when I had to take money, the $3,000 out of savings, in order to kind of get over that awkward spot and get over that hump. So if you have a good idea and you're like, this is going to work, if it just had the time to do it, then invest into it and pull it off. Otherwise, that thing will just sit in the back of your head for years and you'll never otherwise do it. But if you can see the money going out of your savings account, you feel a lot more motivated to spend that time getting that thing done. Maximalist Minibus. Oh, hey, Mary. I want to hire someone to do my social media other than YouTube, but my people right now used to having personal contact with me. How do you transition that? Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good question.
Face that one. So that was pretty scary when I brought in Lennon and Delana. And even before them, I had other strategists who were more behind the scenes than Lennon and Delana are. I was like, these people are paying to work with me. And so two things. One, I changed my pitch. My pitch isn't, hey, work with me. My pitch is now, do you want to get these results? Which is actually what they really want. They just want to work with me because they think I can help them get the results. But if I say, so the pitch is different. Now it's like, hey, do you want these results? Then here's where you go. You do to videocreators.com/consulting or whatever. Although I realized that I did kind of pitch that if you want to work with the three of us. But it's no longer just me. So we're a step in the right direction. And then the second thing is kind of that second part of that is like, I realized people didn't really want to work with me. They just wanted to fix this problem. And so if you're working with people right now, maybe with your current clients, just keep it with you. But on future clients now, and the way you pitch yourself is like, my team and I can help you with this, or my team can talk with you and help you move through this. Kind of like Lennon and Delana have been doing. I don't know how many consultations you guys have done since you came on board, but I know it's in the hundreds, right, for each of you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they've worked with hundreds of creators that I wouldn't have had the time to work with. I literally I don't have enough time in the day. So I think people are it's kind of more about building credibility for your brand than it is about for just you. And then it's that scary risk of just taking the leap and not jumping in when someone on your team is finally working with someone else and it's not you. Don't hover over them. Just trust the processes you've used to train them well. And maybe even like, actually I did this with both Lennon and Delana, is they both joined me in my sessions with people for a while before they actually got their own people that they started working with. So there's a lot of training up front. I think it was like 3 months with each of them, a 3-month trial. I think we spent completely on training, like almost full-time hours on training for 3 months until you guys even started working with clients. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something like that.
It was kind of like a slow transition. It was like, okay, do this call and then do another one. And then, it was like, and also shadow me in this one. So
yeah, come hang out with me. And then it was like, hey, let's do this one together. And then it was like, you're going to do this one. I'm going to hang out and watch. And then it was like, all right, you're on your own.
Yeah. But for somebody like Maximalist Minibus, who's just kind of a vlog channel, she's not really offering a product or service. What would you say?
I'm not really sure what the thing is that she was doing. She just said, my people right now are used to having personal contact with me. And my point was like, they don't really want contact with you as much as they want their problem solved. So like Stephanie does on my email, people write me, but she manages my inbox. And very few of those messages actually make it through to me. But most people don't actually care as long as Stephanie actually responds with a helpful answer. Was what they want. They're like, oh, I was expecting Tim, but yeah, this is great. Thank you so much. Not everyone. Some people are pretty rude, and we don't bother to respond to those people again. I just tell Stephanie, if they treat you with disrespect, don't even bother. So those people never get a response. Just tell them where they can shove it. I mean, it's just like, I don't even want to work with people like that. Some people are like, well, I was going to sign up for Video Labs. And I'm like, I don't care if you're going to give me $1 million. I don't want to work with someone who's a butt. It's just like, I don't really want you in Video Labs if this is like the attitude you're going to have before you even join. So, yeah. Let's see here. RV Odd Couple, weekly team meetings, waste of time or a must? You guys tell me.
A must. We've been having a lot of conversations around having more team meetings, but I think we all voted against that. But yeah, I think it's a must because you want to be able to check in with each other on a personal level, just in terms of keeping a good relationship and good work environment, but then also just keeping everyone on task, making sure that everybody feels like they're working towards something and in the bigger picture, working towards the same goal and just kind of, I think it really helps to keep everyone on the same page. So I think that team meetings are absolutely a must. Yeah.
And I think the key here too, is that when you're trying to, when you've built something, the person that you're bringing in doesn't have any ownership in that yet. And so you have to develop that ownership, because if you can't, and the only way you can do that is with interaction and helping them feel like their decisions matter and like where they're at matters and what they do matters. And you can't do that by only sending them emails of tasks to do. I just don't think it's possible. I think you have to be able to meet regularly to let them know like how valuable what they're doing is to what's happening for the overall vision, and give them that freedom to feel like they can start to make those decisions that you are going to allow them to do, because they need to feel ownership for them to do their best work to some degree.
I think if the weekly team meetings feel like a waste of time, you're probably not using the weekly team meeting right. There's like probably not a clear goal, agenda, or purpose to this. It's kind of like, hey, how's everyone doing? Let's go over calendar stuff or whatever. And then half the people there, their jobs don't even depend on calendar stuff. So for them, it does feel like a waste of time. So I think it's very important to do them well, for sure. Yeah, so many questions here. We're not going to be able to hit all of these. I'm doing all the member questions first. So let's go back to
Maximalist.
There you go. Thank you. Minibus. I love to edit, but it's so time consuming. Half my time is organizing though. It's crazy to think I could just hire someone for that part. Yeah. If you want to do the organizing part and then give it to them, you could. At least you don't have to cut it. And I'm not sure what you cut your videos on, but if it's with Premiere Pro, there's a lot of team features built into that, or you could just use a Dropbox folder and share the project files and just make sure that they're not in the project when you open it up on your ends. But just keep all the raw footage and the project synced. You could do that, but there's so many good with Adobe Cloud now. There's a lot of team collaboration stuff built in, so you can both edit on the same timeline if you wanted to. So she could get the grunt, like all the big cuts done, and you can go in and fine tune it if you want. That's what some creators like doing because they still want to feel like they have their touch on it, which is fine. But yeah. Dennis Abad, again, are there any specific questions that help us find out if a teammate embodies your core values? It's a little hard to ask a question because no one's going to tell me, Tim, I do not put people first, and I don't care about results, and I have no mission for my life or for what you're about. Like no one's going to say that.
I'm not results driven.
Yeah. So I find it better to ask questions where he's like, tell me about a story or a time when, and it's not really like a specific story that's intentionally about pulling out that thing, but I just want to know, I just want paying attention, what parts of the story do they focus on? Do they get excited about? And do they spend more time talking about? Because anyone can spin a story any different way. It could be the exact same story, and depending on how you spin it, really reveals a lot about what you believe and why it matters. So, I don't remember what I asked you two. Do either of you guys remember?
I
can
don't
go back
remember.
and look at my notes, but
I think literally you just shared the core values, and you're like, "Does this feel like it aligns with you?" I was like, "Probably not, but we'll move on."
Lennon was very honest.
probably not. How much does it pay?
Yeah. That's how you know that that's the person you want to hire.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I mean, money's obviously important, and the better you pay them, less turnover you have, so that's good too.
But I also think that part of that is just honestly, it's a gut level check. It's like whenever you're talking to this person and how they respond to just even basic questions, not even strategic questions, like what's kind of the feeling that you're getting from their motivation and the way that they think about things and stuff like. I think part of it is just a gut level check too.
And you get a lot of that in the 3-month trial as well. When you're actually spending time together and hearing what they do for fun, and not that you're like over analyzing everything, but you're just kind of being like, are we on the same page with some of these things? Yes or no? And if it's unclear, I think that's when the answer is a no for me. Because if I can't figure it out, then they're probably not embodying it. It's just like a thing that they mentally consent to agreeing with. So it's gotta be pretty clear. Also from Dennis, a last member question here. What are the best and smoothest onboarding practices once you find a teammate? I think kind of what we outlined here, which is get someone, whether it's on Upwork.com or a friend or a mutual friend, or a lot of colleges now have media production, what do they call them? Not tracks, degrees. And you can go to their college placement people and get a whole stack of resumes if you'd like. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but I think like doing a trial with a few of them, like a project trial with a few of them, and then moving on to a 3-month trial with one of them has worked pretty well for us. The only other thing I would say, and I just kind of skipped over this, but if you make a job posting, I like to embed, like I usually just make it a lot of text, pretty long, and it tells a lot about our story and who we are and why we do what we do and things like that before I even get to what the job is. And somewhere in there, I'll embed this random sentence or two with start your cover letter with how many YouTube subscribers we currently have. And then I'll just keep going. It's like this random sentence in the middle of a paragraph. And then when I start getting all these responses, I just look at the opening line. And if they don't open the cover letter with how many YouTube subscribers I have, I'm like, you don't pay attention to details. And I just delete it or respond back and say, no, thank you. So I want someone who's going to pay attention to those details and follow directions, because if I'm going to get on the checklist, I want them to follow it. So it's a little sneaky, but it hasn't failed me yet. We kind of answered some of these questions already. Doodle of a motorcycle. What has been the worst money spent on a team member that you could have done yourself?
Ooh.
Worst money.
I want to hear this one.
Yeah, that puts you on the spot.
Yeah.
Well, it's not you two. How do I say this story publicly? Because I don't want to throw someone else under a bus. But let's just say that I had someone doing a job. Again, I don't know if I'm a sucker for people who need jobs or what, but they needed something. So I helped them out. And this thing that they were doing for me was not cheap. And in the end, they did a very poor job with it. And I lost like $40,000 on it. And that was not good. So I think that's all I'll say about that. Delana, I don't know what's going through your mind, but we probably shouldn't say it out loud. So,
No.
yeah, it was not good. But that person and I are still friends, and we are still on good terms because to me, relationships are always more important than money. So it didn't end well for my bank account, and that person is no longer working with us, but I'm glad that we are still friends and we still have a good relationship and still talk and things like that. So, which I guess comes down to people first now that I think about it. I didn't even realize that, but I think it's a good example of your values trumping most other things. Sarah Dawn, so many good questions. I know we're like overtime. We should be ending this right now, but either one of you have a consultation you were supposed to start 6 minutes ago? Because that's happened before. As I say,
It has happened before.
We're still streaming, and then we get off. Dylan is like, no.
Yeah, that was only one time. That's only happened once. Okay. Yeah, but no, I'm good.
Okay. Sarah Dawn, what do you suggest when it comes to hiring an admin person if the service in question doesn't allow multiple logins, different levels of access? Good question. If I use a service called LastPass.com, LASTPASS.com, not sponsored, but you can share I have all of my login information for everything there. So, because I use a different random password for every single service I use. So it keeps track of all of those for me. And then if I need someone else to have access to something, I can just share those login credentials with that other person to their LastPass account. I'm not sharing the password necessarily. It's still encrypted to them, but they can still log into those services with my data. And then if at any point they're not working for me or anything, I just go in to LastPass and remove their access to that login info. And I don't have to change my password and all that kind of stuff. So, History Treehouse. How do you estimate how much time per week one needs to hire a person for a specific job, like social, email, person? If the job requires 10 hours or 40 hours, to clarify, if you don't know how long the job will take, how do you figure it out before hiring them? You have an idea of how long it takes you to do. So I would start there and then add significantly more time. Because you have been doing this, you're in a groove, you know what to ignore, what to give your attention to, and a newer person will not. So I guess if I was going to hire someone to do something that took me 10 hours to do, I would give them at least 15 hours to do it. And even more, maybe up to 20, especially like the first week or two. And then at the end of their 3 months, they should probably be pretty close to your 10 hours if you have been communicating with them well, instructing them well, updating your checklist as they spot all the gaps and the holes in it, and things like that. That sound about right to you guys?
Yep. Absolutely.
Michael DeVoe Photography. What's the best way to find a YouTube business assistant? I just find someone who's teachable and humble and embodies my core values, and I just train him from the start. I just find it's just you get a much better relationship, and things just work better in the long run than trying to find someone who already professes to be an expert and stuff, and then you gotta untrain them in a lot of things. So maybe not with video editing and want them to already have that skill, but for the most part, I'd rather find someone I have to train instead now. Crown Nebula. What are some times when freelancing such as Fiverr are better than hiring an employee or vice versa? Okay. Comes to mind for you guys.
I think that it depends. If it's, again, if you're in a situation where you're crunched on time right now, this could be short term. It's I got 1 or 2 projects. then you might hire something like Fiverr. But I think oftentimes what you'll find is that those initial hires are never going to be as smooth as you hope. And so those short-term things where you're getting somebody, just make sure you have enough of a leeway or a runway time-wise to say, okay, we may have to do some revisions. Because if you expect that, okay, typically I get this done in a week, I'm going to hire somebody on Fiverr and make sure it gets finished, it may not happen. I'd make sure that you have twice or more to make sure that you have time for revisions, you have time for all those other things, because often it just doesn't go as well as you want it to right away, especially if it's your first time hiring somebody. And that'll go both ways. Like, your communication won't be as good as you thought, their communication may not, or execution may not be as good as you thought, and now you have to hire somebody else. Just give yourself enough time to make sure that if you need to make adjustments, you can. But, I'd say that's more with one-off things as opposed to like continual projects.
Yeah, I would say like thumbnails, things like that, you could probably do and just try it, especially if you're getting your feet wet and you're not sure that you want to hire someone. That could be a good place to start. If you want to try a video editor, Julia, my editor, has been growing a team now, and she's been doing an awesome job editing for a lot of different YouTube creators. So if you want to check her out, her website is studiolilum.com. So studio, STUDIOLILUM.com. And that kind of goes into this next question, which is from Prepsteaders. How much should I budget for an editor? I would certainly not recommend the $15 ones. I would go closer to like this $50, $60, maybe the $70 ones, because normally the better they are at editing, the less time they're going to take and the better the product's going to be, as I suggested. So I would just try it once. Like, don't have to commit to a long-term relationship. Just hire someone on a project basis and just try it and say, if it's going to be $60 an hour, budget maybe $180 and see what you get. Say, hey, I got 3 hours for this, and see what they can do in 3 hours. If it takes you 3 hours to edit, then maybe give them 4 or 5. But if it takes you an hour to edit, then give them about 2 to 3 hours and see what you get back. And that's how I would start. Sani's Place. I get this question all the time. Do you hire interns? Man, I don't. I wish I did. But the reason I don't is because I've learned that for most things, volunteer work ends up being more expensive than just hiring someone to do the job, because there's more accountability, more predictability, and volunteers are tend to be a little bit more flaky and don't show up when you need them to and things like that. So it's just, I don't mess with even paid interns.
Yeah. My husband and I, as we're moving into this house, we have a lot of friends. There are some things that we want to change, like we want to change the flooring and stuff like that. And we have several friends that work in construction who have offered to do us favors. And we're like, but we want to make sure that the job is like going to get done in a timely manner. So like, we want them to take it seriously, because we know, as much as we like these people's work, we know that when there's not an exchange there, that it's a different attitude, and whether it's an intern or whatever it is. And so we would rather just kind of fork out the money and have a really serious job done, and then go from there. So I think it's, yeah, yep. I agree with you on that.
Let's do a rapid round. Finish these up. You guys have you guys have more questions than you normally have. So
this is great.
Really good. Boone Builds. Thanks for the super chat, Boone. Tim, thanks for keeping it up. I just delegated some tasks for the first time. Any resources and identifying which content/products/services are most worth my time. I do have a link at videocreators.com. If you click on tools at the top of the website, it'll go to a lot of the camera equipment and video equipment that I use, microphones, as well as links to some of the services that I use, including editors and accountants and things like that. I haven't updated it probably for like 2 years, so I probably need to do that. But that'll give you an idea, Boone. Robbie Garns, how can I network with other creators without looking like a stalker? A little off topic, but I would summarize it by saying offer value to them and with no expectation of anything in return. It's Probably
And go to
just a good way.
events.
Yep, events. If
Go to
you
events.
can.
Yeah.
Sarah Dawn, any thoughts on paying someone in barter for those of us who don't have the cash on hand? Yes, actually, that's how I started doing even before hiring an editor. There's a lady who I knew YouTube. No, I knew YouTube back in the early days, but I know nothing about starting a business or sales or internet marketing or anything like that. And so there's one lady who that was her area of expertise, and she wanted to grow her YouTube channel. So we bartered time. That I did a session with her once a month, hour diving into her channel and what she's working on, and then she would spend an hour with me once a month working, on helping me understand how internet marketing works and turning this into a business and getting my first lead magnet published and first course and sales copy and all that kind of stuff. So her name's Kim, and the two of us met twice a month, every other week for her stuff and my stuff, once a month each. And we did that for like a year and a half or so. So that was before I could afford to hire someone as well. And then Jillian Gans, you recommend some best practices for hiring someone directly as independent contractor for you? Yes, I do. But I think what I'm going to do is, for the sake of time here, I'm going to give you a link. And I'll put this in the show notes for anyone who is looking to learn more about how do I find people, hire them, what does your more in detail process look like with hiring a team and growing your getting an editor. How functionally do you actually work with an editor and all that? So I have a playlist on my channel, and I'm going to put it in the chat here for you guys who are live, but also put it in the show notes. It's titled How to Grow and Manage a YouTube Team. I'm typing that out for you guys right now. And if you guys go to that playlist, it has everything from how do I work with my producer, how to find, hire, and work with a video editor. I did that actually with a couple of those with my video editor. How I grew my team, how do you find and hire a team, how do you work with a human video editor, step-by-step process for creating a video with my team, the tools we use to streamline our workflows for YouTube, how we plan and organize our content calendars together. Even got a video there with Ryan from Mid-Atlantic CPAs on finding a good accountant, and lots of stuff. So you guys can go check that out at that playlist, and that all those videos will help answer all the rest of your questions. So thank you guys for all the good questions. Man, I hope we got to all the big ones, and I know we didn't get to a lot of them, but thank you guys for hanging out. And if any of you guys do want to go further with us, go to videocreators.com/consulting and schedule that 1 hour session with Lennon, Delana, or myself. And we look forward to diving in with you guys. So thanks for hanging out, and thank you for welcome to Chickenlandia for moderating and producing today's live stream. She did an excellent job for her first time, got all the right questions in front of us in the right order. So it was perfect. Thank you, Dahlia. And we will catch up with the rest of you guys next week for another Video Creators Podcast episode. See you guys then. Bye.